Marcia is the founder and editor of SpacePolicyOnline.com. And I tell you, that's probably the first thing I pull up in the morning is Space Policy Online to see what we've got going on for the day, the different virtual activities we've got going, and also, following, or at least trying to follow, budget developments in the different authorizations and appropriations and other influencers world. Now, Marcia has more than 40 years experience in space policy, 31 years at the Congressional Research Service, 3 as Director of the Space Studies Board and the Aeronautics and Space Engineering Board, ASEB, at the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, and 11 as the editor of SpacePolicyOnline.com and president of Space and Technology Policy Group. She's a past president of AAS. And Marcia, thank you very much. Take it away.
Well, thank you very much for that very nice introduction, Alan. And thanks to AAS for inviting me to be the moderator here today. And I'd also like to thank Zach Ashcraft, Gail Allen, and Mike French for putting together such a splendid group of experts on space policy. The Glenn Symposium, of course, honors one of Ohio's most famous astronauts, John Glenn, and it highlights the activities at NASA's Glenn Research Center in Cleveland. So it's very appropriate that we have 2 space policy leaders from the state of Ohio with us here today. And they will be joined by 2 space policy leaders in Congress here in Washington, D.C. You can read their bios on the website for the Glenn Symposium. They're very impressive, so I really encourage you to do that. But we want to spend most of our time today getting questions from all of you and answering them if we can. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through those resumes. So I would just like to welcome Joe Zeis, Adam Holmes, Pam Whitney, and Joel Graham. And maybe each of you in turn can sort of wave your hand at the camera so the audience will know which one of you is which. So Joe Zeis is a retired Air Force colonel who was a senior advisor for aerospace and defense to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, which is a cabinet level position in the Ohio government. Colonel Alan Holmes is a retired Marine aviator who is in his first term as a member of the Ohio House of Representatives and chairs the Ohio Aerospace and Aviation Technology Committee, which he was just saying met earlier today, so maybe we'll hear a bit about that. Pam Whitney is on the Democratic staff of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, which sets policy for and authorizes activities at NASA and space activities at FAA and the Department of Commerce. She is the staff director for the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee. And Joel Graham is Pam's Senate Republican counterpart on the Aviation and Space Subcommittee of the Senate Commerce and Science Transportation Committee. So our hope today is that each of the speakers will talk for 5 to 7 minutes or so, which will give a lot of fuel for all the great questions that you're going to be sending in to Jim Way from the AAS using, I think you've been given instructions already on how to send in your questions. I think you use the Q&A function on Zoom, or you can upvote questions that are already there. And Jim Way will be collecting those and moderating those after the speakers are done. So we very much look forward to the speakers, and we very much look forward to your questions. So Joe Zeis, would you like to kick it off?
Thanks very much, Marcia, and I want to thank you and AAS for letting me be a part of this distinguished panel. First and foremost, I want to express Governor DeWine's greetings. The aerospace and defense ecosystem in Ohio is critically important to him. The workforce, the installations, both military and federal, and the industry are critical, are absolutely critical to Ohio and our nation's security, economy, and future. So Governor DeWine sends his absolute best wishes for a wonderfully successful symposium, and it's just exciting to be a part of this, both personally and professionally. Really appreciate it. I think, when you really look at Ohio, properly matched, and properly expressed, it's unrivaled in aerospace and defense. And I want to talk a little bit about how we frame that. In each of four critical areas, installations, research ecosystems, industry and workforce, NASA, space, and aerospace play a key role. I always want to remember the first A in NASA, and that's, of course, air. They play a key role in what Ohio does and Ohio's contribution. I mean, it's not unreasonable to say that the path forward to the moon and to Mars is really through Ohio. And to paraphrase one of NASA Glenn's distinguished directors, Janet Kavandi, that Ohio's in aerospace is the aerospace state. It's unrivaled by any other state when it comes to its achievements in air and in space. And I think that it's true to agree that once again we're in a position to shape the future of aviation and space exploration. It's part of our ethos that Ohio leads in aerospace innovation. That's where we want to go. That's the position exactly that Ohio wants to be in. If you take a look at Ohio's aerospace task and our ecosystem, you really divide that into four critical pillars, and that's really where our policy and our strategy lie. The first is preserve, protect, defend, and grow the value of Ohio's federal aerospace installations. So that includes NASA, Glenn, both Lewis and Plumbrook sites, all of our active duty sites that exist in Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the Joint Systems Manufacturing Center in Lima, Ohio, and the Defense Supply Center, Columbus. Our reserve, our guard, which is the fourth largest in the U.S. and also deals with a lot of space and intelligence activities, as well as R&D industry and the workforce that support these. So if that's really the key, is to preserve and increase the value of those installations. And we'll circle back to where that really, I think, impacts in space policy in a moment. The second pillar is to seek to advance synergies and the research portfolios of our national level laboratories that are in Ohio. And by that, I mean of course, NASA Glenn, both Lewis and Plumbrook, of course, the Air Force Research Laboratory, Battelle Memorial Institute, which is huge and operates several of our national laboratories. And that's key. But they're all underpinned also by the Ohio Federal Research Network and our state's incredible network of academic institutions and their associated research institutions, insofar as they work critical space and aerospace issues. The third pillar is to work with our private economic development organization, which is Jobs Ohio, to attract aerospace and defense industry to the state. And that's critical to maintain a growing state economy that we have. And I just point out that Ohio is number one supplier base to several of the major aircraft prime manufacturers, as well as significant high-tier subs, for example, Meggitt, Parker, Hartzell, Eaton, L3 Space, and our own primes, whether it's General Dynamics Land Systems, General Electric Aviation, or Boeing Space Systems in Heath, Ohio. So it's a huge supply base that Ohio represents, and it's this industry that's critical to build on. And then the fourth pillar is to support and sustain the workforce, both university educated as well as career tech center trained, going into K through 12 STEM to support pillars 1, 2, and 3. That's a huge workforce. It's incredibly vibrant, dynamic. We do some amazing things here. We want to stimulate and provide the pipeline of individuals who can not only fill the gaps that exist in our current industry and government needs, but also can regularly refresh that pipeline with new ideas and innovative concepts as we move forward. There's really a three-part strategy that goes along with this, and that's one, increase the knowledge of Ohio's aerospace ecosystem. It's an education internally, right? I'm not new to Ohio's aerospace and defense world, but everywhere I go, I didn't know you did that here. It's a surprise. It's a matter of understanding and taking that process of discovery and linking each one of those parts to a greater whole than just the individual parts that are Ohio, and then to increase that profile significantly. Because in understanding that, you understand the credibility of the Ohio aerospace ecosystem. The second part of the strategy is aggressively, seek mission and industry. A mission, it's all based on what resources we have, based on community support, based on a workforce. In attracting industry, it's really based on the technical thrusts of Ohio and the proximity to significant aerospace centroids of excellence, here in the state. Manufacturing supply chain, right? Additive, qualified, incredibly qualified, advanced manufacturing supply chain. Focuses on R&D in space, right? Across from southwest to northeast and all in between. Propulsion and advanced power systems, as well as autonomous systems and trusted systems. It's absolutely key. And then number three is to develop deep reciprocal alliances based on the synergies that we develop. When you really look at space in Ohio, that's what we're talking about today. So in Pillar 1, the installations is really attracting, for example, the U.S. Space Force and U.S. Space Command headquarters to Ohio because of the synergies that exist in the Air Force Research Lab and the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, in the resources that exist in NASA Plumber, NASA Glenn. That's critical, as well as education in that area, whether it's the Air Force Institute of Technology doing space education or the National, like I said, the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. The second area we want to work towards and increase is research, right? It's hypersonics, right? And clearly in the areas of expertise of Plumbrook and Lewis, the electrification of aircraft and the electrification of propulsion, non-traditional space communications. That's part of the envelope of a mission of NASA Glenn, and that's key. The human performance in aerospace systems to include medicine at a distance. AFRL and NASA and Battelle partnerships are key in all of these areas. To attract and to deal with the third pillar is really a space industry attraction and commercialization. Really commercialization of a huge opportunity, and that surrounds the government-derived technologies from both NASA Glenn as well as the Air Force Research Laboratory. For example, personal protective equipment in today's COVID contingency issues, Glenn is a prime example of the commercialization possibilities of technologies that were derived for space usage. And there's been some tremendous examples of that technology derived from NASA Glenn into the private sector in developing rapid response and personal protective equipment. That's a derived commercialization. There's also direct commercialization for industry of government-derived technologies to meet government needs and or commercial needs, both in air and in space. And those kind of derived commercialization opportunities are key to attracting industry. The piece I'll also touch on is not just big industry, but it's small businesses, right? It's small businesses that surround NASA in Northeast Ohio. I'm reminded of businesses like Orbital Architects. I'm also reminded historically of companies like Aranca in Middletown who solved the heat shield issue of the Apollo spacecraft. And so there's neat opportunities, incredibly complex, incredibly impactful opportunities, not just for large, but for small industry. Manufacturing in communication systems, in space communications in the Cincinnati area is huge, as well as 3D and advanced manufacturing technologies. And then attracting space industry that can build on those subordinate opportunity spaces. And that's where we're working really hard together with Jobs Ohio and the administration and industry in order to meet the needs of industry, both present and projected and attractable to Ohio. But ultimately, the workforce is the key. Really, it's our educational industries and who we can attract in order to fulfill the pipeline to meet the dream not only of Ohio but of the nation in air and space. That's where we're really going. It's exciting time to be in Ohio. There's a lot of opportunities here, and just in those pillars, the possibilities are boundless as the industry so describes. So thank you very much for being a part of this.
Wow, that's a really fascinating stretch of everything that's being done in Ohio. I think that many people probably were not aware of the full breadth of everything that's going on in the state. Holmes, so will you fill us in even more on what's going on in Ohio?
Yes, thank you very much, and what a privilege to be on this panel. And I set my timer for 6 minutes, so I'll get going. So Ohio it doesn't sound exciting, and that's what we've been saying all along, is we need to be better advertisers of what we do, because there is so much going on in the space industry in Ohio. My job, I'm a state representative, and as the chairman of the Aerospace and Aviation Technology Committee, is to be the champion in the legislature for all things space, and to get that and be a champion for Ohio. As we all know, it's an incredibly competitive arena, and not even internationally so much as nationally. And when we are competing for these new projects and the new development of new capabilities, we're certainly aware of what other states are doing to be more facilitating to the space industry. We recognize Ohio has incredible history and a lot of capability and infrastructure that exists. So again, this emphasis on re-energizing that. And I think we've come a long way. I'd say I've really been appreciative that Governor DeWine recognized the need for Joe's position, Colonel Zeis's position on his staff. He created that, somebody as a director of Aerospace and Aviation. And my committee that was established to be a champion inside the legislative arena, as we said. And Jobs Ohio is so innovative. That is technically not a government agency. It's a private business that goes and advocates for aviation and aerospace globally. So to have that kind of initiative on our side is worthwhile. I wanted to say a couple of things that that are seen from my chair in the 2+ years, actually 4 years that I've been here. We talked about state competition. I'm also recognizing, to energize in the space arena now, you have to have federal, state, and local cooperation, and that all has to be networked. I'm sure I'll hear from that from Pam and Joel next. And my relationships with legislators, Ohio legislators in DC, and to make those positive and facilitating. It's very difficult just because everybody's busy. That's really important to keep those communication lines on. We're actively doing that, and that's so important. Additionally, recognizing that the space to be competitive industry as a state, you have to coordinate academic, industry, and legislation together. It's never going to be single source. Maybe it never was, but Ohio is blessed with a deep academic capability from our universities and doctorate level training all the way down to our trades, and that's where I was before. And like Joe said, workforce development, and recognizing that as a key theme to competitiveness, because we're watching where these companies plant, where they want to invest and develop, and what is the recurring theme. We think we know what it is, and legislation certainly plays a part in that. Far beyond tax breaks and other incentives like that, far beyond that, it's going to go deeper. And I think as America is developing, we're recognizing quality of life and other factors that are that make areas competitive for business, and we have to be that. Ohio is that. As your champion, I'm going to say that, and we're going to continue to make it so. Also, the industry, it's far beyond business. It's certainly manufacturing, and we can all see that, but it's also training and training capability. So the workforce may exist for a time. It's aging. I think everybody could, anyone who would be listening that is involved in an industry can recognize an aging workforce in our STEM, and especially in aerospace. And we just heard that this morning. So we have to be able to get young people involved and get them trained. Test and development is going to be perpetual, and having that kind of resident capability. And I have certainly learned the advantages of Plumbrook and Glenn Research for having these world-class, unique test capabilities in Ohio. We don't advertise that nearly enough. I would say if you would ask most common folks, when you think of NASA, what do you think of? It's either Houston or Florida, but I would say Ohio's capabilities are just as important, just as priceless as anywhere else. And certainly seeing the international customers that would come and visit and test it at Plumbrook has been eye-opening for me. And we need to advertise that more. That's on me to do that. And then finally, that cooperative nature between Joe and me and the legislature. So the governor, the legislature, and the industry, and that cooperative nature. That again, I'd say is a true advantage for Ohio because we're really good at that. We're organized in a way with this genuine common goals with a lot of capabilities. So we have a lot to advertise. And that's what I've been doing for the past 4 years. And again, just to be able to talk to you now and be proud about what we're doing. There's certainly much more to go. And again, there's some real competition out there. But I do think Ohio has a lot to offer in the long-term strategic period for committed investment in the space arena. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Well, thank you so much. Pam Whitney from the House Science, Space and Technology Committee. Adam brought up the nexus between state and federal governments. So what's going on with your committee? I think you're muted, Pam.
Great.
There you are.
Well, hello, everybody, and it's great to join you this afternoon. And I want to thank AAS for holding this panel and inviting me to participate, and Marcia for moderating. It's been a fascinating start to listen to the other panelists talk about Ohio and what's happening, and hope to give you sort of a brief overview of what's happening on our committee and subcommittee. Before I continue, I want to include my usual caveat that my comments are my own and do not represent those of a member, the committee, subcommittee, or any official position. So I wanted to start by sharing with you just an update on some of the Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics activities, and then look at a brief snapshot of what's happening on the Hill. Earlier this year, at the subcommittee level, Chairwoman Horn, the chair of the Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics, introduced the Bipartisan NASA Authorization Act of 2020, HR 5666, with full committee Chairwoman Johnson, Ranking Member Lucas, and Subcommittee Ranking Member Babin as original co-sponsors. And we passed the bill out of subcommittee in January, and we were hoping to mark committee just around the time that we had to move to working remotely due to the COVID pandemic. The bill authorizes NASA as a multi-mission agency with robust programs in science, aeronautics, human exploration, space technology, and STEM. And one of the particular areas of focus in the bill is authorizing what would be required for a serious Moon to Mars program. So as we look ahead, the committee's continuing to consider when we'll be able to resume in-person markups, and we're looking forward to marking up the bill at full committee at the appropriate time. At present, though, the COVID crisis has presented, as we're all aware, significant and immediate challenges, including for government programs, contractors, and so much more. So over the past months, the committee has focused significantly on inquiring input from stakeholders on COVID response, recovery, and impacts, and looking at COVID-related issues. And those have occurred through briefings with members, roundtables, and virtual hearings. And we've been very active in that regard. In April, the committee issued a broad call for input from stakeholders, and we received over 1,000 responses. And also in April, the Subcommittee on Space and Aeronautics and the Subcommittee on Environment, which handles a lot of the NOAA satellite programs, we had a joint staff level roundtable to get input from federal government contractors on the impacts and the challenges that they're facing through the pandemic. In addition, we worked hard to support adding language to the CARES Act that would provide federal government contractors the ability to pay employee organizations in a ready state once it was determined safe to go back to work. We've had some member briefings on COVID-related issues. One that was fascinating on NASA's innovative contributions to addressing the pandemic, including JPL's rapid development of a ventilator in just 37 days. And we also heard about NASA's return to work framework and the status of its operations under COVID. And then just last month, the subcommittee held a virtual hearing titled R&D to Support Healthy Air Travel in the COVID-19 Era and Beyond. And that looked at what we know, what we don't know, and what we need to know about research on infectious disease transmission in aircraft and the aviation system. And as everyone's aware that this is an industry that's been impacted in a huge way, and also is a factor in, the potential spread of the virus from one location to another. So the subcommittee was very interested in looking at the R&D issues associated with aircraft and air system. And then the committee, though, is also continuing to carry out its oversight activities and looking to, and work is continuing to move forward in areas. And we're very hopeful that we'll be able to get the Pro-SWIFT Act, the Promoting Research and Observations of Space Weather to Improve the Forecasting of Tomorrow Act. And we're hoping to get that all the way through soon. And we'll be continuing to look at COVID response, recovery, and impacts, and also carrying out our oversight activities as we go forward. And I'll just step back for a minute and say, look at what's happening on the Hill in general. I think we're very fortunate that space and aeronautics is one of those areas of broad bipartisan support. Some of the issues and discussions lie in where to put the emphasis and ensuring balance. I think we're seeing some of that at play right now. And while there's support for returning humans to deep space exploration, we don't support doing that at the expense of key science programs or STEM activities. And we saw just recently the House Appropriations Subcommittee, CJS, just marked up its fiscal year 2021 appropriations bill and maintained flat funding for NASA. But in particular, they continued to fund high priority science programs and also STEM programs that were proposed for cancellation in the budget request. I heard Joe and Adam talk about workforce and the importance of growing the workforce, and those STEM programs are really critical in that regard. They include the Space Grant program, which is very popular and includes consortia in all 50 states, and also the Minority Universities Research and Education Project, Europe, which supports, so importantly, the opportunities to increase diversity in STEM for space programs. So I will stop there and look forward to a discussion and turn it over to Marcia.
Well, thanks so much, Pam. And Joel Graham from the Senate Commerce Committee. How are things over in the Senate?
There we go, take it off mute. Well, thank you, Marcia, and thanks to AAS for having me today on the panel. Things are going well in the Senate considering the current environment and the posture we're in. We continue to move forward with floor action as Pam mentioned. The Pro-SWIFT Act, the Space Weather Bill, is currently moving through the unanimous consent process in the Senate, which is I say quick and easy way to pass legislation. That's not completely a quick and easy as it comes to the Senate, where when all 100 members agree on something, it just goes through and there's no floor debate or floor action, traditionally speaking. So that's on the unanimous consent process, the hotline we call it in the Senate. We're hoping to have that across the finish line soon. Just for a brief sort of status update on where we are, we've had a busy year here at Senate Commerce under the leadership of Chairman Roger Wicker, I work for, and of course our ranking member Maria Cantwell from Washington, and our subcommittee chairman Ted Cruz and subcommittee ranking member Kirsten Sinema from Arizona. We've been able to introduce and mark up a commercial space bill, Space Frontier Act. It was passed through the Senate in the previous Congress, and we tried to revamp that and get it going again, of course, to support not only the FAA with its rulemaking in regards to commercial launch and reentry, but the Department of Commerce and NOAA, as they have now taken to rewrite the remote sensing and Earth imaging rules, just to update them and reflect more of a posture where the industry currently is, and set the table for growth as we move forward. So that was one of the first things that we did. Back in November of 2019, we also introduced and marked up our NASA authorization bill. Similar to the House bill that Pamela was talking about, it keeps NASA a multi-mission agency. It supports all of the vital, not just human exploration, which has been kind of a lot of the talk recently, but also the vital science missions that NASA does, the aeronautics, which I know is a huge priority at NASA Glenn. I've been following their work on electric propulsion and some of the things that they're doing on the aeronautic side. It's pretty impressive. And I know Joe and Adam, you talked a little bit about that. And of course, no virtual visit to Ohio is complete without acknowledging the 25 astronauts that have come from the state. So, keep up the good work on that front. But yeah, no, we're proud of NASA Glenn and the research going on there, particularly when it comes to upper stage and atmospheric engine testing and vacuum chamber testing. I know the Orion space multi-purpose crew mission crew module went up there for environment testing and has passed with flying colors. We're excited to see that riding atop the SLS for Artemis 1 hopefully next year. So that'll be exciting, and know the role Ohio has played in that. But yeah, we're working the process on our NASA authorization bill. It supports the Artemis Moon to Mars program. It supports human exploration and the administration's goal of accelerating the timeline on that to keep the agency on track, and to do it in a way that's responsible, learns lessons from previous programs and previous, I hate to say previous failures, because as the fits and starts of human exploration have given us lessons to learn. And one of those actually is Ms. Janet Karika was talking about on the last panel, was the firm fixed price and sort of innovative contracting models that can be used for these major programs. Of course, the human landing system is something that NASA's looking at a firm or a fixed price type of model of something along the lines of the commercial crew program for that. And of course, we support that in our NASA authorization bill, because if we're going to keep NASA's multi-mission portfolio vibrant and maintain the science missions and the STEM education missions and all of the things that the agency does, it's important to find innovative new ways of seeking funding and partnering with industry to provide these programs and the infrastructure and architecture to do that. So that's one of the things we support the agency's progress and goals in that as well. We're working that bill through the process in the Senate. I guess a few highlights from that: not only does it support the Artemis program, but it also supports the science missions, things like the James Webb Space Telescope, which is going to be world-changing when it launches hopefully next year we'll see. I'm not sure exactly. We're tracking the effects that the pandemic has had on progress on that. It seems to be that they're still making progress, and we're glad to see that. And that's going to be world-changing science when it launches. Things like WFIRST, we support the Wide Field Telescope, and others as well. And just circling back to the aeronautics portfolio, that is a high-value area for NASA right now. It's like I said, as much as the human exploration gets in the news, and especially as we've seen with commercial crew and launching American astronauts from American soil to the space station once again for the first time in nearly a decade, the aeronautics portfolio of NASA is going to be crucial to the future of aviation, the future of commercial aviation. As a private pilot myself, and I'll give a shout out to one of your Ohio companies, Hartzell Propeller. I've flown behind a few of their products, and they've gotten me back on the ground safely. But and so I appreciate the work that y'all are doing. The commercial aviation industry and the innovation that's coming out of NASA Glenn and coming out of NASA as a whole of an agency is going to revolutionize that. It's going to really open up worlds of possibility as far in propulsion to make for cleaner, quieter, more efficient, more cost-effective aircraft for that industry. And things like the truss brace wing that are going to just revolutionize transport aircraft design. We're excited to see, and of course we support that in our NASA authorization bill. One of the things I think is particularly timely given the pandemic and its effects on air travel, the effects it's had on the air travel industry, and as industry looks for ways to maintain profitability and maintain sustainability into the future. More efficient aircraft design and more efficient technology and better technology is going to be one of the things that helps to do that. So that's a key area. We also support, the moon, of course, the moon exploration being one of the big priorities right now. It is the goal of NASA to get American astronauts back to the moon by 2024. We don't want to forget Mars, and that is the ultimate goal here, is to send humans to Mars. And to do that, we're going to need some pretty innovative types of technology that we currently don't have right now. Things like nuclear propulsion, things like long-term cryogenic storage. What we do with our consumables, our food, our air, our water, and trying to see if we can use resources at the moon to provide those consumables as we send American astronauts to Mars. Those are the kind of long poles that we have to solve to be able to do that within the next couple of decades. When we talk about the efforts, I want to circle back to the pandemic right now with the CARES Act. Maintaining our contractor workforce, maintaining our aerospace workforce was a big priority as we talked about COVID relief and making sure that we're supporting the industry from Washington. One of the things we did work for, as well as our colleagues in the House, was provision in the CARES Act to allow contractors flexibility with regard to keeping the workforce paid, in particular in cases where those employees could not access a NASA center or a U.S. government center physically to perform the work that they're contracted to work. Been following NASA's work in general as far as protecting their workforce, and as they have shut down centers and then reopened them gradually and in a safe way, we've been following that. Of course, Chairman Roger Wicker, being from Mississippi, Stennis has been one of our particular areas of interest here, and we're excited to see the work that's going on with the Green Run, the SLS core stage, and testing there. And we followed that, how NASA took steps in the immediate wake of the pandemic to protect their workforce, to safe the hardware, to make sure that there was no loss or hardware issues there. And as they've reopened and brought the workforce back and resumed work, we're glad to see that they've done that in a safe and responsible manner, and so we're supporting that. And then one last thing I'll touch on, and this is something that Adam and Joe you talked about, was the federal and state partnerships. Now those are absolutely crucial to maintaining a strong aerospace sector in the U.S. We have so many activities that go on at the state level that really augment. I mean, we can't do it all from Washington, nor would we want to. We just cannot do it all from Washington, and so we need that support from the state level. We need the advocacy. We need the workforce support. We need the state legislators to do those things, you know, pass at the state that augment that. And so I want to thank you for y'all's work on that sort of thing. It truly is a federal, state, even local partnership when we talk about maintaining a healthy space industry in the U.S. So yeah, we're just to sum it all up, we're looking forward to passing our NASA Authorization Act through the Senate. We're working on doing that now. And looking forward to talking to our colleagues across the rotunda and getting that passed into law. And I think it's crucial, particularly this year being an election year, I think it's crucial to pass a NASA authorization bill to maintain the work that NASA is doing on all of its mission directorates, no matter who's in charge. And so I think if we can get that into law, if we can make sure that NASA stays the course and keeps working on their missions, I think that'll be a great thing for the industry, a great thing for the agency.
Well, thank you so much. You certainly give us a lot of food for thought, all four of you. Maybe the best place to start with Q&A is on this federal-state partnership issue, Joel, that you just brought up. And maybe Joe and Adam, maybe you could talk about what is it that Ohio needs and wants from the federal government, particularly with regard to NASA, since the symposium is mostly about the NASA angle, but you can talk about all the other parts of your aerospace interests as well. But what are you looking for from the federal government? Joe, you want to start?
Sure, Marcia. Clearly, what I think is for the federal government to understand the synergies that are available within Ohio, and number two, to recognize and that we can build on the proximity of those capabilities in a much more rapid acquisition process, right? Giving value to proximity in contracting and recognizing the synergies that are available when one looks at that. I think, you know, a corollary to that is, you know, when you look at all of the installations that are in Ohio and the universities, and you know, specifically NASA, Glenn, both Cleveland, Lewis, and Plumbrook, the Air Force research laboratories, right, Patterson. Those are huge installations, and they're incredibly impactful installations. But here's the one piece that I think is absolutely key, and that is the greatest strength of Ohio, right, is not in any one of those installations, no matter how big it is or the economic impact. Like, for example, right, that's $16 billion of economic impact. And Glenn is on the order of about the Air Force Research Laboratory impact. I mean, it's huge in what they do, but no matter how big that impact is, the state's greatest strength is its synergy, right? It's a synergy that's unmatched in our mind in the nation. So it's understanding from the federal government. So the folks both at NASA and the Air Force to recognize and to build on those synergies in both research and development, right, and also acquisition. Because in doing that, in understanding that there's a tri-legged stool here, that if you can close the loop, the federal government can close the loop in terms of R&D and acquisition, then we could really be a powerhouse. We can be a powerhouse in terms of a disruptive acquisition model that provides quick solution sets to the nation. That triad is to co-locate R&D along with the acquisition elements, along with the manufacturer, right? The prime manufacturer, the integrating manufacturer can take all these piece parts, put them together, and then produce a product. And in doing that, even in today's world of video teleconferencing, there's something about proximity that really, really matters. So there's a piece part of where a recognition from the federal government, from its acquisition arms, whether it's National Air and Space, or whether it's NASA, or whether it's the FAA, or whether it's the Air Force, or in the case of, in the case of Defense Supply Center Columbus, the Department of Defense, it's a recognition that there is this acquisition model that can really transform the way we develop and buy our aerospace systems.
Adam, what would you like to add?
Okay, and thank you. And this is the right form. And we're all focused on the NASH initiatives and its space focus, but this is the right place to talk about other second order effects of our space program, of America's space program, and why both, like you said, it's bipartisan, and why is it? And Ohio is a place that we can perpetuate those goals of workforce development, diversity and inclusion, and really increasing STEM capability. I did some really interesting research on how America energized its industrial base for World War II. And why Ohio has many of the resources it does now is from that time period. And that's very interesting. But NASA is just such a catalyst for so many positive things outside of this direct technical mission and goals of the entity. The things that we can do for this area geographically, and for all the people and the young people in this area. There's a coolness factor that we've talked about when we're looking for ways to inspire our youth to get involved in high-tech things. NASA's the ticket. NASA's always been the ticket. And so that's one thing I would love the federal agencies to know is the cooperation you would get from us and will continue to get from us to increase NASA.
And if I could add one other thing to what Representative Holmes just said, Marcia, and that is also the synergies between the administration, the state, the governor's office, the state legislature, and our federal delegation. That's key also. And so yes, what should the federal federal government recognize? And it's that synergy, right? It's the delegation, it's the state legislature, and it's the governor's office that are all working together along with industry and academia to really provide solutions and to enable those solutions in the best ways we can do it.
Yeah. When America needs unifying ideas, now this is it. Space is, everybody loves it.
Thank you. So Joel and Pam, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah, no, that's good. I did want to call out the research, our research institutions there. Like you said, that's part of the entire STEM pipeline. That is how we, the hardware is cool. We have some really, really cool things and technology that we do, but we wouldn't be there and we wouldn't have that without the people that underpin it, the people that figure that out. And to do that, we need a comprehensive STEM pipeline, and that starts young. Goes through university. The space grant, of course, being one of the force multipliers of that NASA does, and bringing students into STEM, but having that research institution base and having all of the cutting edge work that's going on there, that's absolutely crucial. And when you see the work that goes on between the research institution and the PIs there, the principal investigators there that are doing a lot of the science missions, that allow science missions to be done that are not the flag. Everybody likes to look at the flagship missions that NASA does, the big telescopes, the big space missions, but it's also that it ignores almost the work that's going on at our research institutions on a smaller, really interesting, really good science missions that are getting a lot of good data. And we wouldn't be there without that network of research universities. And so they're absolutely crucial in making sure that the work NASA does continues and grows. But having that workforce pipeline, there's the two sides: there's the research, the science part, and then there's the workforce, the technical, the engineering, the industrial side of it, and both of those are critical. And so to have a workforce that is a science-based workforce, and also the industrial, the technical workforce, those are both two important ingredients to having a robust and thriving aerospace sector. You might bring up a great point there. And as much as we can encourage those synergies, through different states on the federal level, we're wanting to do that. I think we've seen a lot of success in partnerships between NASA centers and states. Places like Alabama with Huntsville and Marshall, and of course NASA Glenn in Ohio, and Florida with Space Florida, and the partnerships that have happened there have really we've seen a lot of success with some of those.
Pam?
And I will add, this is a great topic, federal state synergies. When we think about some of these programs and the NASA programs, we're really, it's amazing to realize Space Launch System, James Webb, and so many more. There are suppliers in multiple states across the country. It's such a, it's a national effort, and it, looking at what it takes to accomplish some of our goals in space is a federal, state, university, industry, non-government, all of everyone working together. And what's important to make that possible is having clear and consistent goals. And that's where I think Congress comes in, and why it's so important for us to provide, you know, a NASA authorization, because really the civil space program and its goals and objectives set the course for the future, for commercial research and partnerships, and getting that direction in place provides some certainty so that all the national laboratories, the universities, the industry, the commercial space providers, we can all be working together, and folks can plan ahead and understand where the priorities are. And of course, NASA's long lead R&D is such an important basis for a lot of commercial space applications and activities. And I think that having those clear and consistent goals can help us leverage all the partnerships at the state, at the university, at the laboratory level, at the industry level, and work towards achieving those goals.
Well, thank you. Jim Way, if you're there, I'll turn this over to you to see what kind of questions you're getting from the audience.
Yeah, you bet. We do have some questions coming across. This is mostly, since we were just talking about workforce, given rising levels of unemployment due to the pandemic, are there any kinds of incentives or mechanisms being considered for training of new industry entrants who might otherwise be considered unqualified?
Thanks, Jim. I could probably start in Ohio anyway. I can speak to that. And yes, I'm on the Workforce Development Committee as well, and so proud of legislation the governor signed earlier this year called the Technical Credential Program, Tech Cred. In essence, for specific higher level credentials, licenses, the state will pay for those. And on behalf of the companies that employ these workers. So another incentive for any young man or woman that wants to get some advanced manufacturing training, the state will pay for that if they've promised to work in this state. We've had a lot of takers already. The best use of money I could think of, it's a win for everybody involved in this, and I'm proud to be part of it. But things like that and getting serious, and again, just like Joe said, that only happens because the governors, the schools, the businesses, and the legislature are all that have a common vision. And we do, and that we got that one in. And I think from the question there, any kind of training that you're thinking about in industry, the answer would be yes, that would be paid for, specifically in space.
It'd be great to get answers from the other panelists, but I know we're getting close to time. So Jim, if you have other questions, maybe we should move on to the next one.
Sure, sorry about that. So yeah, I do have another question from one of our attendees. Do you expect any action from Congress this year on space traffic management, including whether the Commerce Department or any other agency should have responsibility for that?
Joel, you want to take that first?
I will. Thanks, Jim. Boy, that's a timely subject. That's an important one. I know space traffic management and particularly space situational awareness now is something that's becoming. I mean, we're approaching a precipice on that. It's an important issue. It's something that we don't have long to figure out, unfortunately. With Space Policy Directive 3 coming out from the administration, we at Senate Commerce have looked at that. We've looked at the agencies that could potentially handle the commercial notification side of the SSA mission, which is typically or is done by DoD currently. And part of what, for those aren't familiar, Space Policy Directive 3 did is move that say that should move from the Department of Defense to the Department of Commerce, and particularly the Office of Space Commerce, and elevating the Office of Space Commerce to a Bureau of Space Commerce to give it that standing in the interagency process, to give it the attention and the focus and the funding, quite frankly, that it needs to carry out the mission. And so we've supported that. We've looked at it, and we believe that that's the way forward. We certainly supported the Bureau of Space Commerce in our Space Frontier Act that we marked up last year, and we believe that's the way forward. The space situational awareness mission is one that we think needs to go and needs to be transferred quickly, and it needs to have the Office of Space Commerce needs to have the resources to carry that out. To that end, couple important things, sort of mile markers coming up. One of them is the NAPA report that was commissioned by the appropriations committees. That is going to be looking at the SSA commercial mission and seeing and examining which agency would make sense for to house it and where to go with that. And I believe the results of that are due in September. So that'll give a little bit clearer picture from that point of view, and probably guide the appropriators and what they think. That has been kind of a key sort of difference, a key conversation on the Hill is between authorizers and appropriators as far as what agency is to handle that. And Senate Appropriations has had their thoughts on it, and of course commissioned the study to look at that. And we've supported sending that to Commerce. So we're interested to see sort of what that comes back with. But we are very much trying to move the needle on getting that mission stood up, getting it to the Department of Commerce, and giving the folks over there the support and the funding and the authorization that they need to carry out the mission. Particularly when LEO constellations and the numerous satellite constellations that are coming online now, it's just going to get even more crucial.
Thank you. I wish I could give Pam a chance to respond too, but I've just gotten a message on here that we need to wrap it up. So that's what happens with these Zoom meetings. You can't really transition over into the next session. So anyway, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you all so very much for participating. And thank you to Patrick and Jim and everybody else at AAS, Alan DeLuna. And it was great. Thank you all.